Our next call is Gary, also from Pennsylvania. Gary's a theist, and he says that he has figured out atheism from a Christian's perspective. Now, I'm not sure which portions, but I'm eager to find out. So let's hear from Gary. Gary, you are on Skep Talk. Can you hear us?
Great. I hear you loud and clear. How are you?
We're
Wonderful.
well.
Well, yeah, we're well. Tell us a little more about your question.
Really happy to be on. Yeah, I love the fact that you have an open line. Most Christians, they're locked in and they don't open themselves to questions.
Hmm,
I really like this arena that you've set up. Appreciate it.
wonderful. So fill us in. What you
Yeah.
got for us?
So I call in a couple times and I really like the fact that you guys are available. But the previous caller and this teaching of hell that the churches have used, I believe that a lot of information has opened up in Christianity, which really boils down all these different denominations to be highly inaccurate. So I'm open to any questions you might have, but I've been thinking about this a lot since I like to call in, and I think I understand the atheist premise, and I do have some criticisms to throw at you, and you can also throw it in that name once I dish. But
Criticism is my
please go ahead if
favorite
you
thing,
have anything
Gary. Unfortunately, I'm having a little bit trouble hearing you. You're a little bit muffled and a little bit quiet. I don't know if you're on a speakerphone or if you're on.
Yeah, I'm
If
on a
there's some way
headset. Let
to.
me get off of it. Hold on.
Oh, already that was
Yeah, let me get off.
much better.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Thank you. This will help
Yeah,
our conversation
I'm
go much
totally
smoother.
off now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope it's better now.
infinitely better. Now I
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Okay,
Totally
So
fixed.
criticize
so I think
away.
so I think I figured it out. I've been listening a couple episodes. You guys are super intelligent, far smarter than the average population. But from what I've heard, the goal of the atheist is to really excel in life, with the potential or hope that humanity, by every following generation, just gets it a little bit better than the previous one, to the point where significant breakthroughs in technology and science will ultimately create a habitable, just world where essentially folks could live eternally. Is that a fair statement?
Who wants to go first? Because I know to almost everything.
Yeah. You start us off on this one, Paul.
So
Because I
one,
think
I definitely don't want to live forever. 100% don't want to live forever. Slightly longer, maybe, but maybe not even that. Actually, something that's super important to me is being able to choose when I go. Um, I've had some history of illness, and yeah, so that's really important. I don't. I've yet to be in a room with three atheists where we can agree to anything at all, other than that no God exists. So, like, I'm. I think what atheists I think secular humanists, at least, tend to more advocate for uh, immediacy, like things that are immediate, not long-term goals. So, reducing harm, increasing flourishing, and and basically treating this one and only life as if it is our one and only life, and so thereby, in any given case, whatever that means, to maximize that limited time. That's sort of the priority. I've yet to come across any atheists who agree to any long term things, other than perhaps maybe that we would like religion to be less influential. But so almost everything you listed there, I was shaking my head. It's like, well, that wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be voting for that.
Yeah. So you would not want to live forever if you had perfect health and all your peers had perfect health in a beautiful, sustainable society where there weren't the ills of danger and harm, and you had constant joy and good times with your peers and individuals traveling and seeing different parts of the galaxy and all. You would just be like, all right, I hit 100, I'm good to go.
Well, maybe I think 100's a little short. But if you said, "Do I want to live for 1,000, even under like ideal Highlander conditions?" Like I'm not sure. Like part of what gives life meaning for a non-theist is the finity. the non-infinite nature of it, the fact that it will end is part of what gives it value. Things that are plentiful and have less value, right? And so when your days are infinite, you value them less.
Why is that?
So
I don't. That's
that's
subjective.
you
Would
don't.
you agree?
I would agree that it's subjective, but that's why I'm saying you can't put these qualifiers on large groups of people, because there are large groups
Right.
of people who like, so for example, a meal or a movie or whatever, like, it eventually comes to an end. Am I
Right.
sad?
But
Am I
that's
like,
but,
but
but
carry
my
on.
premise is the world. So the premise is the atheist is hoping to make this world a better place to leave the next generation after them to
Some
also
of them,
have the same experience, but slightly better, right?
the
Yeah, the
ones that
good
are
ones, good
the
ones.
ones that are altruistic, sure, but again, that is the being selfless, as opposed to being like, if I want to live forever, I'm aware that in resources are finite, right? So I have to selfishly then want to take from future generations or take from other people, because unless you're
Right.
proposing that things are
But
infinite.
correct. That's what I'm saying. If everything had a level of if there's enough science and technology to create a habitable, just environment where food is abundant, health is unlimited, friendship and the ability to have connection, we wouldn't want it to end. And I think if
I'll
anyone
throw
would
it to I'll throw
disagree
it
with
to
me to say if all go ahead.
I'll throw
So
it to Erica. I absolutely no. I don't want to. I don't know people that think that heaven's a great idea. It's just
So
not a
I'll
thing.
offer an alternative perspective, right? Like I for me, living significantly longer, even to something like 1,000, I'd be down with that, right? Like, I'd love to live a super long life. That's a very, very big difference from forever, though, right? Like, I'd love to live a super long life because I'm a glutton for knowledge. I'm a glutton for the enjoyments of this world, spending time with my loved ones, learning new things, being entertained, having a good meal, just seeing the wonders of the world. I love that, right? But this is how it was described to me at one point, right? Like, and maybe for those of you out there who are like me, who love a good nap, this will ring true for you as well. I love being awake. I love having the best day ever. But for me, I wouldn't want a day to last forever. I need sleep too, right? Like, I need time to turn my consciousness off for a little bit. And to me, that's restful, that's peaceful. Now, obviously, sleeping and death are probably different things, and in death, you don't tend to wake back up. But I see it as almost the same thing for people who live just these enormously long lifespans. Even today, people who live to be 100, 110, right? Even if they have other individuals who live to be as long as they do, when you ask them how they are, and I'll speak personally because I've had family members that have lived to be just obscene ages, like into their 100s, they say they're tired, right? They say they're exhausted. They've lived for an incredibly long time. They've lived a wonderful life, but they're over it. And for some reason, for some of them, I mean, it's probably health reasons and the fact that they've outlived their loved ones, which in your scenario, you would fix quite a bit of that. But what I'm saying is that eternity, I think for everyone, yourself included, even this is an assertion, I think there would be a limit to that. I think there would be a point, unless you're just artificially or arbitrarily rather positing that in this perfect world that point doesn't exist. I think at present, with our present human bodies, living forever would eventually become incredibly taxing and incredibly exhausting. And I think you see this in a lot of science fiction. Like I think Asimov's The Last Question is a good example, where like people live for longer and longer lifespans, and then they also take these long breaks from being conscious, or their consciousnesses merge, or whatever. Because this concept of infinity just isn't compatible with our finite brains. We can't conceive of it in the same
I
way
would
that we
agree.
can't of like the infinite past. We can't conceive of an infinite future. So if you ask me if my goal is to live forever, it's not. I'd love to live for a long time, but only because I want to have more of the life that I've had. I don't want it to last forever. I do agree with what you said about wanting human flourishing to be, or rather what Paul said, kind of combined with what you said a little bit, where it's like, I want more human flourishing. I want to build, I want to do better than the generation that came before. And I want that generation to improve and that, and so on and so forth, until you get as close to a utopia, whatever that may look like, as possible. But that being said, that's not something that's pinned to atheism. And I think that's a really clear distinction that has to be made, right? Like secular humanists, sure, that's a partial, partially a goal of some secular humanists. But there are atheists of all stripes, just like there are theists of all stripes who have different goals and different ends, and see a different perfection for the future. So I think that your trouble here, Gary, is the umbrella in which you're pulling everything under, the umbrella of atheism. I think if you narrowed it down to being like a specific subset of atheism that you feel this applies to, you would have better luck. Because as Paul said, not every atheist is cut from the same cloth here, and not every one
Correct.
of
However,
you
yeah,
see what I'm saying.
I I totally agree with you, but I would beg to premise this that if you notice, we might choose a round number like 1,000 because we still have a very planetary, earthly mindset that eventually something that could go wrong will go wrong. So if you could imagine an existence where there isn't corruption, this is why the Christian faith or the Muslim, or I don't even want to bring up other religion because I'm an atheist, I'm Christian. But from my perspective, there's a bit of despising from the intelligent atheists as they look at the Christians because they have this idea of an existence that has no flaws. Is that one of the reasons why Christians are looked down upon, or is it because of their beliefs like eternal hell? Which, by the way, I don't agree with. Hell is not eternal. And so there's methods to the Bible, and I know I'm speaking so quickly and I'm doing a lot of diarrhea of the mouth because I
You're
only
doing
get a small time to talk with you guys, but
no, you're doing.
hell is not suffering in a flame.
Gary, if I may, a few things there. On the list of people who give the problems they have with Christianity, that people think the idea of heaven is cool is very, very deep down the list. That is not, although I do think that it is a driving factor for a lot of people, the fear of the desire for immortality and a fear of death, and more often even the fear of death. I do think that is definitely for some people a factor in their religion. No, I think
Right.
that a lot of times the animosity that some atheists feel towards the religious, and part of the reasons why I am a soft A anti-theist, is because we feel that the short-term things that religions do, people are making decisions for others based on religious ideas as opposed to prioritizing reducing harm and increasing flourishing. And so
Right.
some people will choose
Isn't
things
that
that cause harm and that
right?
because of either a specific religious idea or someone like I was, who is a young earth creationist and thought dinosaurs were on the ark. Then because you need to adopt that, you actually start need to thinking, well, scientists are lying and scientists are wrong, and I can't trust governments or facts, or like it's just some of the bad decision making that leads a theist to come to their conclusions and then spills over into
Right.
public life. And I think that is where the conflict lies, not that I'm upset that someone wants to live forever.
Would you argue that due to the abuse of religion, not necessarily the religion, the pure religion itself, but the people who've abused it? For example, slave owners would use the Bible and they would take a verse, and that verse has a spiritual concept. So I called Matt Dillahunty and I asked him, "Do you have a spirit?" He said no. And Ammon Ra, I think that's his name, he said yes.
Darn.
Yeah. So my question is, if, and this is not even an if, I believe we have a spirit. Now, they both disagreed, and then Matt then said, yes, we do have a spirit. There has to be some elements of the spiritual world without obviously jumping into the pool of religion. Once we start to get into the non-physical world, we can start the science of the non-physical and then start to go on, okay, why does the majority of humanity have religion?
So
Is
can
it
I dip in
is
on
it
it really
because
quick
they're
here?
dumb?
Go go ahead, Erica.
I think that's
Sure.
yeah, I think that's an important statement because I agree with you. Religion is almost ubiquitous in the world. It isn't, which is an important caveat, but and it hasn't been always. There are individual societies that have existed that have been irreligious. They're anomalous though, and I think that that is an important thing to note. The reason that's commonly proposed, like from an anthropological perspective, is that we are just like terminally curious creatures. We want to have an explanation for everything. And moving backwards in time, I think you can see this in full display because the type of deities, the type of religion that we have um, sort of held to have changed as knowledge comes to light, right? Like we don't have storm deities anymore. We don't have deities of the
Right.
harvest, right? Because we understand these phenomena as facets of our world, which is why my personal pet hypothesis as to why God has become so personal in the modern era, because this is something that is not investigatable by science, right? You can try it, right? You can take the aspects of the things that the Bible claims and you can investigate those. But if someone comes up to me and they're like, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, like I can't put a ruler to that, right? There's nothing about that that I can measure. And I think that's important for what you said next, which is that, the more that we could potentially learn, like there's this aspect maybe of the metaphysical that could be investigated with science. But definitionally, that can't be so. Science is in and of itself about the natural world. If something is supernatural, it ceases to be within the investigative territory of science. It becomes something else. And as somebody who enjoys science very much and uses it to sort of shape the way that I see the world, I find those regions to be the metaphysical and things like that to be so slippery that I almost find them to be meaningless because you
Right.
can't put a number to them, you can't understand them, you can't conceive of them outside of an individual experience. Just to parrot again what Paul said earlier, I want to say I agree. I think the reason a lot of people have animosity towards religion in general is because not because of religion, big R religion, as like, oh, you are spiritual, right? And I think that that is a case in point for that is that people don't tend to have anything against spiritual people. It's when that religion bleeds over into things like policy and the way that they treat other people. Whether you're making policy on climate change or you have a son that comes out as gay, right? Like how a person is going to treat someone based off of their religion, your mileage is going to vary, right? As well as when you take into account that you're religious. And I'm of the opinion that the best way forward for society is one that doesn't say that there's a supernatural sort of a dictator that is deciding what is okay versus what is not okay for intrinsic characteristics in humans. And also I do think that by proposing that there is this eternal wonderful afterlife, there is a slight danger there because people start to treat the world that we have now as temporary and as disposable. And if it's not, then we are doing the people that come next a great disservice. And that's where my worry comes in.
Right. But that too is subjective, as some of the best leaders and scientists claim to have a religious, prototype. But I personally treat my friends, family, and even folks who hate me uh, so much with love. But like you said, religion is very subjective. If they say they have a personal relationship, yet these are the ones who are doing one of the most heinous things, just treating their children who come out or whatever have you. But my premise is this: do you think that it's in the possibility that there is an understanding that very intelligent atheist people can have some understanding that the Christian faith has certain elements to it which upset them, like eternal life? And since someone says, well, they wouldn't want to live forever, I get it, but what if all things being perfect, who wouldn't want that?
My biggest problem with Christianity is that it's not true. If it was true, all the rest of it I would happily go along with. So I think the more people I meet who leave religion or have never been religious, the number one problem is that it's not true. So demonstrate that it's true, and then maybe I'll get on board the heaven train. But
I do have,
again,
I do have an answer to that.
I don't care I don't care about its utility until I know about its veracity, right? Like,
Well, and I think even the utility outside of that, like let's assume, you're proposing a hypothetical that isn't grounded right. Like, okay, look, what if you had an eternity where you and all that you are is not as it is, right? Like, so you're talking to Paul here, right? Paul doesn't want to live forever. You're basically saying to him, well, what if you did? Well, okay, okay, great. Now he wants to. It's perfect, you know? I mean, if he wanted to live forever and then he lives forever, that's phenomenal. But I think the problem that you're kind of posing to him is like you're saying, okay, all things are perfect and you are as happy as you could be, but that's not the world that we live in now. That's not the way that we are as people, right? And so I think that's a hard sell for a lot of
I don't
folks
think
who
it
are
is. I don't think it is because we're really getting into new breakthrough technologies, right? And although there are some atrocities and horrors, crime is going down, technology is going up, people are living longer, advancements in. So my my original premise of that the next generation after us will get a little better. If that were to continue, breakthroughs could eventually go on. I mean, for the past 150 years, we've made leaps and bounds in technology. So my premise is, so how is this so far off from the eternal dream that religious people have? Because if
I
we continue on this track, every generation improving, eventually we should get to some type of utopia, right?
I mean, I think you definitely the idea, the hope on my end is that eventually society gets close to something like a utopia. But again, a utopia, as we as humans conceive of it, and living an extremely long lifespan, whether that's 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years, both of those are orders of magnitude, like not even in the same ballpark as a perfect world and living forever, right? Like both of those things are categorically different. And I think that for me that's why, precisely why it's a hard sell. Like I don't, you can think of all the wonderful science fiction technology that exists in stories that we've created. In none of those does living forever end well. Like, it seems like no human that has ever written fiction has conceived of a situation where you've lived forever and it goes well. It either involves getting put into some kind of virtual reality or forcibly being, your body is like having to be replaced all the time, right? So, and I know that seems like it seems silly to bring that up, but again, I'm working within the confines of what I understand about the world, and to me, assuming we take that technology exponential, it's still never going to reach a point where the world is perfect and you live forever in a way that isn't um like kind of brutal, for lack of a better
Right,
term. I'm trying to,
right.
to get
Because
across like where I'm coming from. Like again, living
right,
for a long
because
time
nature is
and
violent. Nature is
great.
violent. I agree.
Yeah, and it's like living for a long time again, like phenomenal, right? A world that has a lot significantly more justice and kindness and compassion that we have today. Awesome. Like I'm all for that. That's certainly what I strive to. I hope to leave the world better than when I got here when I do die. But I feel like
Right.
that's categorical difference than living forever and a utopia. But again,
Well, I
my perspective.
appreciate you guys talking with me. I could love to talk about this and many other things. I hope to call back and touch on other subjects because I really have a lot to share, and hopefully you guys would be able to hear me out. So thank you so much.
And I hope you, I hope you maybe accept the premise that you haven't figured out all atheists yet, but you
Thank
can
you,
call
I
back
Gary.
think
maybe.
I think this premise is pretty good. I think that's 75% of you guys, at least.
Gary,
All
I
right,
look
Gary.
forward to the callback. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, that was scary. How was that one,
I
Paul?
love
How'd you
it
feel?
when I just love when anyone of any stripe asserts that they know better than the person they're talking to what that person believes. Nothing but constructive that way. That's just always going to be a great recipe.
Hey, it's Jimmy Snow here. I'm the executive producer on the line with a fun fact. Did you know 100% of the hosts of this channel enjoy eating? It's true. And if you would like to help contribute to their ongoing addiction, you can do so by going over to Patreon or becoming a channel member. There are show-specific, host-specific tiers. Those are awesome. But also, you can leave a super thanks with a special little highlighted comment. You can like, comment, and subscribe. All of those will help fill our whittle bellies. By the way, check out some of this content over here. Algorithm, what next?